In the 4th year of her marriage to Mary, she had a car accident. When she woke up, her memory was stuck in the time when she loved her first love the most. She refused to believe that we were married, insisting that she hated me the most. I tried everything to make her remember our 4 years together, but nothing worked. Later, after an incident where I watched her run towards her first love without a care, I finally got tired. On the day I agreed to the divorce, she suddenly remembered me, but I had already given up. The day Mary woke up, she insisted on divorcing me. As I walked to the door holding the soup I had simmered all night, she smashed a cup of water at my feet. "Get out. I don't want to see you." A few drops of scalding hot water splashed onto the back of my hand. I forced a smile and pretended not to care, saying, "I made some soup. Can you drink it first?" Mary turned away, unwilling to look at me, and only said 2 words, "Get out." After putting down the soup and going out, I could no longer hold back the smile on my face. After leaving the hospital, I squatted by the roadside, biting a cigarette that wasn't lit, feeling a bit bitter. This is the 4th year since I married Mary. At that time, I pursued her for almost 4 years, using all my strength to make her see me in her eyes. But even that insignificant affection is gone now. I thought aimlessly that marrying Mary was actually a stroke of luck for me. Mary had a boyfriend back then, and I couldn't bring myself to break up someone else's relationship. I just silently liked Mary. I didn't make any moves that crossed the line. If Tom hadn't given up on going abroad, I wouldn't even have had the chance to pursue Mary. After Tom went abroad, my pursuit finally came alight. It wasn't until 4 years ago that Mary agreed to marry me. That day was just an ordinary dinner for the 2 of us. After we finished eating, she casually said, "George, let's go get our marriage certificate one day." I took a full 30 seconds to react before I believed I hadn't misheard. Once I came to my senses, I quickly said, "Wait for me," and ran out. In the end, I only bought a bouquet of flowers because I was afraid that if I bought anything else, Mary would change her mind and leave. My heart was racing, and my palms were sweaty from excessive nervousness. That night, I knelt on the ground holding the flowers, and my eyes slowly became embarrassingly moist. I looked up at Mary, who was sitting there in a beautiful dress, radiant and charming. She has always been the way I like, both in the past and now. I sincerely made a promise to her word by word. "Mary, will you marry me? I will definitely treat you well." She took my flowers, and my floating heart then settled back down. Later, I proposed again in a dreamy and beautiful scene with gifts, rings, and I invited both our families and friends to witness. I knew that Mary agreeing to marry me wasn't because she liked me that much. Perhaps it was because she saw how persistent I was, and more importantly, the time had come for her to go. If Mary wanted to marry, I certainly wouldn't refuse. We have been married for 4 years, and I happily followed her around, feeling very satisfied. It didn't matter that she didn't love me much. My love for her was enough. If Mary hadn't had the car accident and her memory returned to when she was most in love with Tom, I think I would be willing to live that beautiful dream in my next life. The more frustrating thing is not that Mary now hates me and doesn't acknowledge our marriage, but that Tom has returned to the country. Mary's white moonlight Tom. Mary couldn't hide this from him. In fact, after Mary woke up, both of our parents told her that she had been married to me for 4 years. Even a marriage certificate was taken out and laid in front of her. Mary just glanced at it and then looked away. So what? We could get married and divorced. Who knows what tricks he used to get me to marry him? I clearly remember that I liked Tom. After talking too much, Mary, still recovering, became agitated, and her head started to hurt badly. The doctor said that in such cases, we should go along with the patient and try not to stimulate her. After hearing this, I silently watched Mary on the hospital bed for a long time through the door. Then I told both sets of parents not to bring this up in front of Mary anymore. The marriage certificate was also packed away in a box and placed at the very bottom of the cabinet. All the couple photos taken over the past 4 years were put into my suitcase, and all the couple items bought over the years were collected and stored away. I encouraged myself, saying it was okay. Forgetting me was fine. Even if she hated me, I could just pursue her again. But Tom's return caught me completely off guard. He hasn't changed much since high school. always maintaining a humble and gentle attitude towards others, and his expression is always warm and soft. I felt a pang of bitterness in my heart, lost in thought, thinking that Tom looks gentle, but he really doesn't know how to take care of people. What does Mary keep thinking about him? The next day, when I came to the hospital, I ran into Tom directly. I found out about Tom returning to the country from my childhood friend Patton. I just didn't expect him to come straight to the hospital holding the bone broth I had made. I felt a bit at a loss watching the two people in the ward. They were talking to each other as if no one else was around, and suddenly Mary laughed softly. Her previously pale face became flushed, much more lively. When I entered, the two in the ward stopped talking, and the atmosphere became awkward for a moment. I tightened my grip on the thermos in my hand, raised the corners of my mouth, and said gently, "Mary, I made the soup you love. Drink some while it's hot." Before she could speak, Tom gently interjected, "Mary, you just recovered. It's better not to drink such a greasy soup for now. I brought you some supplements." I was taken aback. Mary's injury this time, aside from her head, was most serious. In her foot, so every time I came, I would prepare the bone broth the night before and bring it the next day. Although every time I came, Mary would tell me to get lost, I knew she would drink it to some extent after I left. But this time, I suddenly wasn't so sure, so I put the soup aside and casually said I was going out for a smoke and quickly escaped. It was a bit awkward. Before I went out, I heard Tom's voice. "He's still the same," Mary replied nonchalantly. "He's always like this." Her voice carried a hint of annoyance. Since that day, I haven't come back. I'll just keep changing the dishes for my parents to bring to Mary. The day before Mary was discharged, my childhood friend Patton asked me out for a drink. He knew I was troubled lately and just said he wanted to show me something good. When I arrived, I was surprised to find that Tom was also there. I froze, knowing what he wanted me to see. Patton handed me a drink and then spoke. "You shouldn't be such a coward, Tom. Back then, my buddy liked Mary, but at that time, you were still her boyfriend, and he never expressed his feelings. It was you who gave up on this relationship to go abroad, and then George, that idiot, chased her for 2 years before marrying Mary. Now that the campus beauty has had an accident, you come to take advantage of the situation. Are you even human?" I don't know what method Patton used to call him over, but he was clearly already drunk. Hearing this, I just pulled him up and said softly, "Stop drinking, let's go home." Patton, with a flushed face, pointed at me and angrily said, "Are you a coward? That's your wife." I remained silent. At that moment, Tom suddenly stood in front of me, smiling, and said, "So what if Mary insisted on breaking up with me when I went abroad? After all these years, doesn't she still love me? By the way, you probably don't know, but when she was with me, she was much cuter than when she was with you." He couldn't finish his sentence because I had already punched him. Am I angry? Furious. That was the person I loved for almost 8 years, and because of an accident, all my efforts over these 8 years were in vain. Who should I blame? Why does a scumbag like him get to have Mary's love without doing anything? And why, having obtained it, does he not cherish it? What he can easily get is what I had to fight for with all my strength. I cursed and then used all my strength. In the end, Tom lay on the ground holding his head, and I kicked him again. "Don't mention your past with her. Do you even deserve it?" The next day, I found out that Patton originally wanted me to vent my anger, but Tom was deliberately trying to provoke me. The doctor had scheduled my discharge for the afternoon, and just as I was about to leave the next day, I discovered that Tom had already brought Mary back. He still had the bruises from the fight I had with him last night on his face. I happened to run into Mary at the hospital this morning when she was being discharged, so I brought her back. On my way, he said Mary stood in front of him. Frowning at me, George apologized to Tom. I was taken aback and couldn't find my voice for a moment. Tom tugged at Mary's hand. "Mary is fine. George was just drunk last night and got into a fight with me, so there's no need to apologize." He looked warm and seemed to not want us to argue. This scene was too funny and thinking that made me laugh out loud. I laughed so hard that I couldn't help but cough. I took a moment to compose myself and then jokingly scolded Tom. "You're really something." Tom's expression changed and he fell silent. "George, Tom is right. You're just like in high school. You haven't changed at all." Mary looked at me with disgust, as if I were just trash on the side of the road. "Back in high school, you were just a student who only knew how to fight and smoke, always causing trouble. Now you're still the same, which makes me dislike you." I gently closed my eyes, replaying those words in my mind like self-torture. Yes, I finally understood that Mary, who had lost 4 years of memories with me, only felt disgust for me, just like when she first met me in high school. She would have preferred to walk around me, but back then, even a glance from her was enough to make me happy for a long time. I helplessly lowered my head and finally spoke in a hoarse voice to defend my last bit of dignity. "Let him go. This is our home. He has no right to come in." Tom, achieving his goal, gently reminded Mary of a few things, then put down his things and left. The next day, Mary handed me the divorce agreement she had signed. "This is the divorce agreement. Take a look. If there are no issues, just sign it." I was stunned, then I turned my eyes away. "I won't sign." Mary frowned, clearly impatient. "Why won't you sign? If it's about money, the assets are split evenly, and I can give you this house back plus an extra $1 million. This house was bought by me, initially intended as our marital home, using up a large portion of my savings." I took a deep breath and returned the divorce agreement. "I won't sign." Mary looked at me angrily, seemingly not understanding why I refused to sign. Finally, unable to contain herself, she raised her voice. "But I don't like you at all. I like someone else. Will you still not sign?" After she finished speaking, the living room fell into a long silence. I recovered from the sting in my heart and hoarsely retorted, "What you like is just something you've forgotten." Mary was taken aback. Finally, she got up and left, only throwing out, "Do as you wish. If you want to waste time, then waste it alone." I looked at the empty living room and suddenly wasn't sure how much longer I could hold on. From that day on, Mary and I fell into a cold war. She wouldn't eat the meals I prepared every day. She slept in a master bedroom while I slept in the guest room. The foot injury from the car accident meant Mary couldn't stand for too long. Knowing she couldn't let go of her pride, I would prepare meals every day and then go to the studio. I only felt relieved when I came back and saw she had finished. Eating when Patton found out, he scolded me over the phone. "You're really pathetic." At that moment, I was kneading dough and paused in surprise. Finally, I bitterly replied, "Patton, she just doesn't remember." In fact, I had never told anyone that during the 4 years Mary agreed to marry me, she was never like this. During those 4 years, Mary was a very competent partner. We would date, kiss, and love each other like ordinary couples. On winter nights, I would pick her up from work, and she would jump into my arms, wearing a thick coat, sweetly tucking her hands into my palms. On the way home, she would chatter about the interesting things that happened to the company that day. We would roll dice to decide who would cook and who would wash the dishes, even though in the end, I ended up doing both. We would go grocery shopping together, and she would make me change to some strange profile pictures. We would snuggle on the couch in our pajamas, watching movies and guessing who the final culprit was. She would get angry, refuse to eat, and change her profile picture, telling me not to change mine. But at work, she became the calm and dignified manager. During those 4 years, Mary would decisively reject the suitors who came after her one after another. So having received her love, how could it be easy for me to let go? I wanted to try harder. After all, 8 years had passed, and I wasn't short a year or two. I would use all sorts of reasons to take Mary to the places we had been during those 4 years of marriage. I nightly thought that maybe this way, Mary would remember. But there were no exceptions. Every time we went out, Mary would either be called away by a phone call from Tom or would be chatting with him on her phone. Over time, Mary stopped going out with me. I would also take the opportunity to talk to her about our 4 years, but Mary rarely responded. If I talked too much, she would impatiently interrupt me and tell me to stop. I suddenly fell silent as I watched her chatting with Tom on her phone. In 2 weeks, it would be Mary's birthday. I had booked a place long in advance, and the private room was beautifully decorated according to Mary's preferences. On her birthday, I got up early to cook her a bowl of longevity noodles. After watching Mary finish eating, I handed her the box in my hand. "Mary, happy birthday." Recently, Mary and I had slowly returned to a state similar to friends. She was no longer so resistant to me, and it seemed we had deliberately forgotten the unpleasantness of that day when we discussed divorce. Yet I clearly knew in my heart that we seemed unable to return to those 4 years. Mary said, "Thank you," and then asked, "Can I open it now?" I nodded. Inside was a dress. The moment I saw it, I thought my Mary would look beautiful in it. When she unfolded the dress, surprise flashed in her eyes, and my tense heart instantly relaxed. Then I said, "I've booked dinner at your favorite restaurant tonight. If you like, you can wear this." Then I accompanied Mary back to my parents' house for lunch until the evening. In the evening, Mary and I were supposed to go to the restaurant I had reserved, but after she received a phone call, she looked at me hesitantly. "I'm going out to meet a friend. You go ahead. He'll be there soon." The moment she picked up her phone, I saw the name of the caller, Tom. I watched her, unable to say a word, as she pushed the door open and left without waiting for me to speak. I stood behind her, watching her. Not once did she look back. I wanted to stop Mary to ask her if she would come back after going out, but deep down, what I really wanted was to hold her back, to keep her here. In the end, I went to the restaurant alone. Mary said she would come, so I waited for her. That night, I waited from 6 o'clock in the afternoon. During that time, I sent Mary text messages and called her. All went unanswered, and then her phone was turned off. I waited until midnight. 2 waiters awkwardly approached me. "Mr. George, we are very sorry, but our restaurant will close at 1 o'clock. I was taken aback. The dishes that had just been served half an hour ago were already cold, and the cake I had made was left in the corner, the roses no longer as vibrant as when they were first delivered. A few waiters looked over with pitying, sympathetic gazes that made me feel even more uncomfortable. But what upset me the most, deep down, was this. "Mary, you clearly said you would come. Why are you lying?" That night, after I returned home, Mary did not come back. All night, I sat alone in the living room. The next day, I saw Mary, whom I had waited for all night, in Tom's circle of friends. Last night, Tom took Mary to the music festival concert. She was wearing Tom's jacket, and her smile was a bright and carefree one that I hadn't seen in a long time, with a softness and joy in her eyes that felt tangible. The timing was just right. I had just put down my phone when Mary returned. She looked at me on the sofa, and for a moment, her expression was one of surprise. Then, as if recalling something, she spoke a bit flustered. "I'm sorry about last night. I forgot. I hadn't slept all night, and at that moment, I was really a bit tired." I lifted the corners of my mouth, wanting to say something, whether to question or express anger, anything would do, but I found I couldn't say anything. All my emotions had vanished. Seeing me silent, she hurriedly added, "Last night, Tom said he wanted to go to the music festival, so I went with him. My phone died later, so I couldn't call you. You should have come back if you didn't wait for me," I said, lowering my eyes and softly adding, "Yeah, I understand." The atmosphere was too oppressive, so I stood up and went to the studio. As I passed by Mary, she suddenly called out to me, "George, don't you have anything else you want to ask?" "What should I ask? I don't want to ask anything anymore." "No." After saying that, I walked away. At that moment, I suddenly remember my chat with my childhood friend Patton. "What makes you think she can still remember you?" I responded. Back then, I confidently said I believed in her, but Mary, it seems I'm about to lose my grip. After that day, both Mary and I got busy. I had my own photography studio, while Mary was busy with various end-of-fire tasks at her company. Sometimes when we got busy, it turned out we hadn't had a meal together for almost 2 or 3 weeks. Tom had posted a few photos of him having meals with Mary in his circle of friends. I knew these were all things he wanted me to see. As I looked at them, I suddenly felt a sense of resignation, as if it didn't matter anymore. It seemed that for a long time in my life, I had been revolving around the name Mary. I told Patton that I wanted to work hard to make Mary remember me again, but I didn't realize when that thread had quietly loosened without my awareness. At the end of this month, our high school class monitor suddenly organized a reunion for the students. I originally didn't plan to go, but the monitor messaged me several times, saying he needed to talk to me and insisted I attend. After thinking it over, I cleared my schedule for that night. I couldn't help but wonder if Mary would go. Until the night of the reunion, Mary came accompanied by Tom. At that time, my marriage to Mary was very low-key. Only a few close friends knew, and almost no one from high school was aware. So now, seeing the two of them walking together, everyone assumed that Mary and Tom were a couple. A drunken male classmate, upon seeing them, exclaimed, "Wow, you two really are together after all these years." I watched Mary open her mouth to say something, but Tom spoke first. "It's been so many years since we last met. We can't not have a drink, right?" His ambiguous response painted their relationship in a vague light. I looked at Mary, unknowingly expecting something in my heart, but there was nothing. She just smiled and started chatting with others. During that time, she didn't glance at me even once, as if I were truly just a high school classmate. The thread in my heart grew lighter, so light that I could barely hold on to it. The class reunion was halfway through when the class monitor sent me a message asking me to step outside for a chat. It wasn't until I was almost done with a cigarette that the monitor, Lin Su, slowly spoke up. He asserted, "You like Mary in high school, right?" This was hardly a secret. It could be said that it wouldn't be surprising for anyone at the time to have liked Mary. But the next thing the monitor said left me stunned. "You were the one who helped Mary chase away the delinquents behind school, right? The one who put the candy on her desk for a whole semester." I instinctively replied, "How do you know?" The monitor patted my shoulder. "George, I'm sorry. I saw it clearly, and I know it was you. But back then, Mary thought all of this was done by Tom." I didn't stand up to tell her the truth. Suddenly, I felt like I couldn't hear anything. It was as if I had missed a step on the stairs, and my heart skipped a beat. After a long while, I regained my senses. And sees back then, before she got together with Tom, I wrote her a love letter. How could she think it was Tom who did it? The monitor was also taken aback, frowning. "I don't know about that, but at the time when Tom celebrated being single and took Mary out to eat with us, he admitted that he did all of this." A bad thought suddenly crossed my mind. Before I could pull myself out of my thoughts, thick smoke suddenly filled the air, and a group of people rushed out of the restaurant amidst the blaring alarm. There was a fire. I was stunned, and, after realizing it, I instinctively ran back inside. Mary was still inside. The monitor instinctively grabbed me. "What are you doing? It's very dangerous inside. Don't go in." I broke free from him. "Mary is still inside." Since we were afraid of disturbing others after drinking, the waiter had booked our private room in the far corner of the second floor. By the time I ran in, the first floor of the restaurant was already in chaos. Everyone was too busy to care, running out like crazy. The fire was getting bigger, and when I reached the second floor, they indeed didn't know there was a fire outside. A few people were already so drunk they were unconscious, and after I shouted that there was a fire and to run, the few who were still sober started waking up the drunk ones and dragging them outside. I looked around and saw Mary. I ran over, grabbed her hand, and was about to run out. We didn't say a word. She tightly held my hand and followed me. As we passed the restroom, she hesitated and said, "Tom just went to the bathroom." I was taken aback, looking at her anxious eyes. Without saying a word, feeling her urge to go to the bathroom, I pulled her out with a bit of force. "There's no time. We need to get out first." Mary wanted to say something, but I forcefully brought her out. Once outside, 119 had already arrived, and the fire was gradually being brought under control. Only then did I notice a large bruise on my arm that I didn't know when I'd gotten. I hadn't felt it before, but now a sharp pain suddenly shot through me. As soon as Mary came out, she was scanning the crowd. Remembering what the class monitor had said earlier, I was eager to know the answer, forgetting the fact that I had just survived a disaster. I urgently spoke up. "Mary, do you know that I put candy on your desk for a whole semester to help you get away from that group of bullies?" "Tom." The rest of the words got stuck in my throat. I watched as Mary suddenly ran towards Tom, who was standing in the distance. Her eyes were red, and she said with relief, "You're okay? Okay, that's great." The sight of the two of them tightly embracing in front of me pierced my vision, and the fragile thread in my heart suddenly snapped. This scene felt so familiar. I still remember that year in high school when Tom got into a fight. I had just happened to pass by and watch the commotion. Coincidentally, the person who fought with Tom was someone I knew. When Mary saw me, She instinctively thought IW as the one who had caused trouble for Tom. She looked at me angrily. George, I really regret it. I regret ever helping you. You bully your classmates, always causing trouble. Will you never learn to respect others? I even thought you would change for the better. The disgust in her eyes was too obvious, leaving me momentarily speechless. I wanted to say it wasn't true. I hadn't misbehaved, I hadn't caused trouble, and I wasn't the one who brought someone to bully Tom. I wanted to say that I wasn't that bad. I had even been praised by the store manager today for being diligent, and I was saving my part-time job money. I hadn't disrespected anyone, but I suddenly felt mute, my throat dry, unable to say a word. I looked at Tom, hoping he would clarify that this had nothing to do with me. But Tom only glanced at me and said nothing. I could only watch as Mary supported Tom step by step, walking past me. Initially, I hadn't planned to write a love letter to clarify that those things were done by me, but I thought I didn't want Mary to see me that way. It would make her feel that being liked by someone like me was an unbearable thing. I scratched my head for a week, wrote dozens of discarded love letters, before finally writing one that wasn't so deliberate to Mary. In it, I wrote that I had a bit of a temper at first, but I had never bullied my classmates. I wrote that I had liked Mary for a long time. At the end, I wrote that the little bullies I chased away for her during that evening study session were me, and I was afraid she would misunderstand, so I ran away. I also wrote that during that time, when she was feeling down, I had placed different candies on her desk every day for a whole semester. There was so much more, but what I wanted to write the most was, I really like you, Mary, and I'm not that bad. Please look at me. But the class monitor said tonight that Mary didn't know those things were done by me. My love letter might have been left in that corner, trampled on by someone, becoming dirty. My feelings and courage over the years had never been known by anyone. But seeing Mary firmly run towards Tom at the moment of life and death, it didn't matter whether she knew back then or not. I wasn't very concerned anymore. I thought, let it be. The love has never been known by you, and even in your memories, I am still so unbearable, just as I have always been. Whether Mary knows it's me or not, I think I really can't go on with her anymore. That day, I glanced at the two people in the distance and turned to leave. I first went to the hospital to bandage my arm, and by the time I got home, it was almost 1 o'clock. When I returned, the lights were bright, and when Mary saw me, her eyes lit up. You're back. I didn't say anything and went to the bathroom to wash my face, to wake myself up a bit. She followed me step by step, talking. I didn't see you at that time and looked for you for a long time. I called you, but no one answered. You must be tired tonight. I packed some food for you. Come eat. What happened to your hand? Did you just get hurt? Did you go to the hospital by yourself? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Let me accompany you. I interrupted what Mary was about to say. Mary, I agreed to the divorce. I thought that with my feelings for Mary, I would never say this sentence in my life, but I ultimately overestimated myself. I think, Mary, let's end here. Let's put a period on my 10 years of youth. After saying this, I turned and left. It's too late today. I'll pack my things and leave tomorrow. Mary reached out to stop me. Why did you suddenly change your mind about the divorce? My head was pounding, and I didn't want to say a word. I gently pulled away from her. You can have the lawyer draft the agreement again. I don't want your money or property, whatever. I was so exhausted. My body felt like a rusty part, and it was really difficult to move. Behind me, I heard Mary's trembling voice. George, have you thought it through? You said you wanted a divorce. You can't go back on it now. I didn't stop and continued walking. I want to go back on it. Lying in bed, I thought I really needed to rest for a while. I had many dreams during that sleep, dreams of my childhood, of Mary in high school, and of Mary during the 4 years we were married. But what never changed was the gust in her eyes towards me. I woke up close to 11 o'clock, took a moment to gather myself, and started to get up and pack my things. There wasn't much, and I finished packing quickly. When I went downstairs, I thought that given how eager Mary was to divorce me, I would receive the agreement this morning. However, what was on the table was a prepared breakfast. I was taken aback. Mary sat on the sofa, pretending nothing had happened, calling me over. I made breakfast. You should try it. Not long ago, I thought I would be very happy about this, but now, looking at it, I felt not a shred of joy. I only felt helpless. In the end, I shook my head and refused. No, I'm not hungry. When you have time later, remember to message me so we can handle the divorce procedures. Tom, I don't think he's worth your trust. You should think about it some more. If Tom had really been in the bathroom that night when the restaurant caught fire, I wouldn't have disregarded a person's life. It was just a hurried glance as I ran back to the restaurant that I saw Tom rushing out of the bathroom. After saying this, I picked up my suitcase and prepared to leave. Behind me came the sound of shattering, and Mary shouted, "George, if you leave, don't ever come back." After all, it was the house I had lived in for 4 years, and at that moment, my heart couldn't help but ache. As I stepped out, I told myself, "George, this time it's really over." I first returned to the studio, planning to take the photos I had scheduled with a few clients in the next few days. During those busy days, I was also waiting for news from Mary, but she didn't send any messages for a long time. Until one night, I received her message, "George, there was a thief in the house." I'm scared. I put down the camera in my hand and rushed to Mary. I got there in the fastest time of my life. When I arrived, the living room was a mess, with blankets and cushions all thrown on the floor. The property security and police were at the door. Mary was sitting on the floor. I calmed my breath and looked her up and down, seeing no signs of injury. I felt a little relieved. I whispered, "Can you stand up?" Mary shook her head and tightly wrapped her arms around my neck, helpless. I had to pick her up and place her on the sofa. After accompanying her to explain the situation to the police, I turned on the TV for her to watch. I started tidying up the living room, reminding her as I cleaned, "You should temporarily stay at your parents' place until the thief is caught. When you come back, remember to take the key out, and if you hear any noise, hide in your room and don't come out. Call the police. In the future, if you encounter danger, call the police immediately. I can't always be there to answer your calls." As I was speaking, I suddenly paused. I realized that Mary might not like hearing me say these things. "George, my stomach hurts." At that, I reflexively asked, "Haven't you had dinner yet?" Seeing her nod, I sighed and walked to the kitchen. As I boiled the noodles, it suddenly hit me what I was doing. Suddenly, I felt hands around my waist, and I was taken aback. Once I realized, I instinctively tried to push them away. Mary said in a sobbing tone, "George, I regret it. Can we not get a divorce?" I didn't say anything. I just quietly finished cooking the noodles and served them on the table for Mary to eat first. After she finished, I finally spoke. "Mary, you need to eat well even when you're alone." A person who has lost their memory seems to have habits etched deep in their soul that cannot be changed. Mary was used to having someone like me by her side. When she was hungry, I would quietly scold her while cooking for her, and when she was cold, I would remind her to put on more clothes. When one day this person suddenly disappeared, she seemed to be at a loss. I thought, but this is ultimately just a false memory. After learning about my intention to divorce, Mary, my childhood friend Patton, was silent for a long time. Finally, he sighed and asked me, "Have you thought it through?" I held my wine glass, a bit lost in thought. I simply nodded in response. I planned to close the studio for a while next year and go traveling, but there was still one thing to take care of. Mary hadn't given me the divorce agreement yet. Reluctantly, I had to take the initiative to message her and ask when she would be free. However, Mary called me back. It was either about work or wanting to have dinner with her parents. After a few times, I understood her meaning. There were too many clients piling up at the end of the year, and I got so busy that I forgot about this matter. This dragged on until the new year. During this time, both of our parents noticed something was off between us. In the past, our two families would gather together for the reunion, but this year it wasn't appropriate, so I explained it to my parents in advance. Just a day before New Year's Eve, I received a call from Mary. "George, can you come to my house for dinner tonight?" Seemingly afraid of my refusal, she quickly added, "My parents want to meet you." With her parents involved, I had no choice but to agree. That evening, I bought some gifts and went to the company to pick up Mary, and we headed to her parents' house for dinner. The meal was quite cheerful, and we didn't mention the divorce in front of the two elderly people. After dinner, I helped Mary clear the dishes and then suggested leaving. Mary put on her coat to see me off. It wasn't until we walked to the parking lot that she slowly spoke up. At first, when I woke up, I wanted to divorce you. Ignoring the discomfort in my heart, I pretended to be relaxed and said, "Yeah." You even wanted me to roll away without drinking my soup. Mary smiled a little as we laughed. She suddenly stopped after a moment of silence and continued. After waking up, I always thought I liked Tom, but when I was with him, I wasn't that happy. After that night, when you wanted to divorce me, I felt very strange and uncomfortable. George, it's strange. I clearly don't remember liking you. So why do I still feel so bad? She held on to me. George, can we not get divorced and start over? My heart felt heavy. In the end, I took a red envelope from my bag and placed it in her hand. Mary, Happy New Year. We can't go back. Not every mistake can be made up for, and I can't always be so resolute. After the new year, I found myself with more free time. Mary, however, frequently messaged me after that night. Sometimes she would come directly to the studio to find me, and other times she would call me over with some excuse. This situation continued until last week. This week, Mary suddenly stopped messaging me frequently. I only received one message from her asking to meet at a cafe. This week, when I arrived, Mary was wearing a dark coat, a scarf, and her hair was down over her shoulders. When she saw me, she smiled. George, you're here. It was then that I realized something was off. I hesitated and asked, have you regained your memory? Mary silently nodded. After learning that Mary had regained her memory, we both fell silent for a moment. She looked at me and said, I'm sorry for what happened after I lost my memory. I sighed, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. What if Mary had regained her memory sooner, or if I had just held on a little longer? But there are no what-ifs. That was the limit of what I could endure. After a while, Mary spoke again. The reason Tom returned to the country is that he lost money while helping someone start a business abroad. He rushed back after hearing about my situation, hoping I would give him money. Hearing this, I breathed a sigh of relief. Since Mary had already figured it out, she shouldn't be with Tom anymore. Given Mary's nature, she probably wouldn't let Tom off easily either. After discussing everything, the topic of divorce inevitably came up. Looking at the person I had loved for nearly 10 years, I felt nothing but regret and bitterness in my heart. I'm sorry about the divorce, I said. Do you still insist on getting a divorce? I nodded. After signing the agreement, we agreed to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau next Monday. Just before I left, Mary softly said, I didn't know it was you who helped me get rid of the thugs back then and who gave me candy for a whole semester. I always thought it was Tom. Her voice trembled. George, I'm sorry. It seemed like no one was at fault. It was just that I had been unlucky, always missing out. Only later did I find out that the love letter had been discarded by Tom. After learning this, I remained silent for a long time, saying nothing. Before going to bed that night, I thought about how incredibly unlucky I'd been back then. After completing the formalities, I closed the studio as I had planned and stopped taking filming collaborations. I began to plan my travel itinerary for the year. It was just then that I received news about Tom from Patton. I heard that he had recently been pursued by debt collectors and had no money to pay them back. With no other choice, he had to borrow from old classmates one by one. Everyone knew what kind of person he was, so of course, they were unwilling to lend him money. Some even took the opportunity to kick him while he was down. His reputation was completely ruined. He used to care so much about his reputation, and now it was utterly destroyed. Patton told me this with a sense of triumph. Let this bastard suffer while he's down. Karma has come for him. I chuckled and hung up the phone, then continued to work on my travel plans. I traveled for a whole year, seeing many places I had never had the chance to see before. Throughout that year, I still thought of Mary sometimes. I felt a sense of melancholy and regret about our relationship. I couldn't blame her, but it seemed I couldn't fully forgive her either. So, I decided to leave it to time. We could be strangers, classmates, friends, or even acquaintances, but it seemed we could no longer be lovers. Perhaps when I finally let go, Mary and I would sit together again, chatting and drinking, sharing some funny stories from the past, and talking about the foolish things I did during the years I loved her. I could also talk about how I gradually let go of her over the past year.